German infantry is opened up. Now we're going to start getting casualties from our infantry. They're coming under fire. The tank is moving forward. The tank needs to move from the batteries. Those tanks, creating one of those was not a solution. It was horrible. Inside that, the temperature would be about 50 degrees centigrade, and it sort of hot inside a few minutes. Caught up in smoke. It's a horrible way to go to war. That's exactly the way they move. The tracks wrap all the way round. The thing on the back, that's wooden. It's a bit like railway sleep. That's called an unditching beam. The idea is that the tank gets into deep mud. You attach that to the tractor shakers. The tank tracks, pull it over at the top, and it leaves itself out. That's 6 pounder gunfire. That's common shell. Going to rough up the enemy. Tank is moving forward. Tank is delivering fire onto the enemy positions. The infantry have taken cover. The enemy infantry, German infantry, they can't face up to that thing. Understandably, they are starting to retreat. They're moving back. British NCOs pushing our infantry forward. Coming forward, firing as they go, lengthening the bayonet. Now those frontiers, quite heavily, they carry about 30 kilos of weight, so they're moving fairly slowly forward. The enemy have withdrawn. The infantry keeping in cover of the tank, keeping the tank between them and the enemy fire. Practicing fire and movement, going forward rapidly. They've reached the first enemy position. They are coming around from the left-hand side of the arena. You've got the second bit. Now this is a really lovely thing to have. This is a real First World War tank. This is a Renault FT, built in MG08 position there. So the Renault is going to need to come forward and take care of that. Mark 4 going forward, Mark 4 is going to fire again. Industrial might, and this is the thing that will keep the war going, particularly in World War II. Now the Liberty truck is the first truck ever. Well done.
well. In the very first instance, we used Valentine's out in North Africa. It's supposed to be another infantry tank like our Matilda 1 and Matilda 2. Things as well that we've been able to pick up on during 19.
To the M3 Stuart, as it was called by the British.
I love that smell of diesel. Ooh.
Medium tank, and here comes perhaps one of the most iconic vehicles, quite possibly one of the most important vehicles of World War II, and this is the M1A1 Sherman, known to the British as the Sherman II. This is the medium tank the Americans wanted, but couldn't build, had to make do with the Grant, which had all sorts of problems about being too tall and what have you. The height of this thing is dictated by the fact it's got characteristic things about the M1A1 is that this one was made. How incremental changes were made to the development of the Sherman is just as simple as the A1 came for the A2s, came for the A3s.
The 76mm gun on. Now the Soviets have tried to build. Soviets they buy the rights to build these types of tanks, BT fast tanks, and they've got a English model to build on in the 1930s. Now Russia disapproves of well enough training to use them. So early in that campaign, much of that Russian tank fleet is lost, including some of these fantastic new T-34s. Frightens the life out of the Germans when they meet them, because suddenly we're meeting a tank with sloped up.
If we manage to keep out of the secret well, you will see something that hasn't really been seen since the end of World War II. You will see the King Tiger, Tiger, and Panzer III together. Now, starting off with King Tiger. Certainly did when it came to Allied tank crews. That is
30,000 Germans, 50,000 Turks.
One of his characteristic large-scale campaigns, Operation Plunder, throwing thousands, tens of thousands of troops across the Rhine with an enormous aerial support. So Operation Varsity, your biggest aerial landing in Arnhem. And here we can see a convoy coming in here. These are men of the 29th Division, the guys who landed on Omaha.
Yo, the turret's moving.
They're advancing with some light armour support. They've got an M5 ahead of them, and in the rear they've got an M24 Chaffee. This particular one is in British markings. The 7th Armoured used Chaffies as their reconnaissance vehicle, so it looks as if they've managed to link up with the Americans here. They're putting on some incoming fire. Ah, right. They've stumbled on a German emplacement. Now, at this stage in the war, the Germans are putting together Kampfgruppe. These are almost ad hoc groups of troops, of armour, of transport, whatever they get their hands on. These troops might be Panzer Grenadiers, they might be Hitler Youth, they might even be Luftwaffe police, but they're pressed into service to defend the homeland, the fatherland. Now we can see the 29th are laying down, suppressing fire on the German position. And the light tanks are coming up and doing what they do well. They're using their relatively light armour to dominate the battlefield here. We've got grenades going out. Some of these young Germans will be no older than 16, 17 years old. Ex-Hitler Youth, pressed into service. Hitler had this belief that if he could only hold the Western Allies long enough to inflict enough damage upon them, make them pay for every metre of Germany they took with Allied blood, they may go to the negotiating table, and then Hitler could persuade them to turn against the real enemy, which he saw as the Soviet Union. So whether these young Germans buy into that theory, whether they have been inculcated with Nazism as members of the Hitler Youth, or whether they're simply afraid of what might happen if they try and get home to defend their homes and families, if they're caught by some of the roving SS units. They've already seen the bodies hanging from telegraph poles and what have you, with the notices around their neck saying this coward refused to fight for the fatherland. We don't know, there's going to be many, many ideas, many emotions going through their heads. Also gives them considerable armour support. It's going to take a lot for the Allies, for the Americans to deal with that. And thus far, we've seen no deployment of American anti-tank guns. The American light armour is deploying away from the King Tiger. That's absolutely reasonable. There's nothing they can do in the face of that King Tiger. And it looks for the moment as if Kampfgruppe has successfully halted the American advance. Many of them will be replacements, but not all of them. Some of them will remember the butchery of Omaha, the horror of the fight through the hedgerows, the Norman blockage, the struggle for Sherwood. They are not going to be particularly generous towards German prisoners. Now they've taken the German position, as you can see, they're consolidating, they're digging in. Any infantryman will tell you an infantryman's best friend might be his rifle, but his second best friend is his shovel. Right? They're digging in to secure their position. You can see in the background there's a jeep acting as one of their forward reconnaissance command units. It's mounting a Browning there in the back to give it a little bit of firepower. We've also got a GMC truck, a deuce and a half. This was the most commonly produced vehicle. It's interesting when you consider how the Germans were struggling for this kind of logistical support. Most German soldiers, even at the beginning of the war, went to war on their own 2 feet. They were supplied from wagons pulled by horses. In America, they built something like 500,000 GMC trucks. This is a later pattern one, you can tell that because it's got the canvas tilt rather than the solid cab. About 500,000 GMC trucks. They were always available there, they were always ready to bring forth, and of course a lot of their supplies were being brought forward on these trucks. Now, our young Germans here are about to be reinforced. The rest of the Kampfgruppe is moving up. As I say, an ad hoc unit, whatever is available has been pressed into service, but in this instance what's available is somewhat rather more impressive than the normal. Leading the German convoy, we have a KFDZ 222, which is a light armoured car, did good service . They might outgun this particular probe from the Americans. The 29th here might be on the back foot slightly. What they don't do is they don't control the air. You can bet every minute or two each one of those German soldiers is flicking his eyes upwards. He's looking to see the sunlight reflecting off an Allied aircraft. They used to say with dark humour, if you look up in the sky and you see a brown aeroplane, it's British. If you see a silver aeroplane, it's American. If you don't see an aeroplane, it's German. That was their idea of a sort of dark soldier's joke. And of course, we're not simply talking about fighters, we're talking about fighter bombers, the Jaeger bomber, the Jabos, things like the British Typhoon, the American Thunderbolt, packing. Are bringing forward Panzer Grenadiers. They are checking the ground out. Remember, they know this ground. It's their ground. And as I said before, they are determined to make the is paying
I'd like it behind me just to maybe not damage
the seas.
Yeah, it's
Reinforcement, that's not going to be very many meters, I fear. But, ladies and gentlemen, here we can see those radio messages did not go unheeded. We've got some American armour coming in, a couple of Shermans. Ooh.
oh shit, they're being flanked.
Now the 29th have flanked the German position, and the Shermans are coming in to firing range. Now we've got an M4A1 and we've got the M4A276 with that high velocity 6mm gun, which should be better able to take on the heavy armour on the King Tiger. It's going to be nip and tuck, it really is. What we actually need here is a Firefly, but we haven't got one, so we've got to make good with what we've got. Now we've got an American mortar firing on the Germans. The Americans are bringing out suppressing fire. The Americans they were taught in infantry school a simple mantra: find them, fix them, flank them, finish them. Right? Well, they found them all right, or the Germans found them. They've got to now fix them in position. And when they've done that, they must flank the position and then bring up suppressing fire to finish off the battle. So we'll see how we go on. That King Tiger is going to be a real thorn in the flesh now. If it gets a direct hit on any of the American armour, that's not so good. Right, now the 29th are advancing. You can see an NCO there with the Tommy gun, the Thompson. The Germans have taken over a deserted village to get some cover from incoming small arms fire. But that King Tiger is still dominating the battlefield. Come on, we need a flight of Typhoons. Where are you, Raph?
Imagine if we actually
more incoming fire. Keep their heads down, guys. There's a BAR, Browning automatic rifle, going up there. Now, hang on, here comes the A2. Moving into a position. Don't let yourself get hit, guys. Well, no, you're right in front of me anyway. Now we've got this is marking the position for artillery. Okay, you've got some very brave GIs there, getting very close to that monster. As you can see now, they're flanking the Germans in the village. Get that suppressive fire down on them. The King Tiger seems to be struggling to find a target. Maybe I was right, maybe they are. An inexperienced crew. Here comes the M5. King Tiger, you begin to realise how things changed during the war. GMC's coming round, followed by the Jeep. An incoming mortar fire. Hello, we've got a hit. Right, there are rounds coming down on the village. The Americans in street fighting now. Grenades, bayonets. Come on guys, remember, don't run into your own grenade blast. Common mistake amongst the young recruits. The Germans have surrendered. It's interesting, if you read the accounts quite often, once the enemy had surrendered, particularly once the Germans surrendered, it became very clear as to where their background was. Some would refuse medical attention, they would spit out medicines they were given, they would abuse nurses who were trying to treat them in American field hospitals. Others would do everything they possibly could. They would act as stretcher bearers for the Americans, for the British, to try and prove in a sense that they were not Nazis, they were simply Germans doing what people do to defend their own homeland. And even the attitude of the victors tended to change a little bit, not always, but sometimes they would recognise their captives as the same as them. In other cases, and this may be the case here with the 29th, the hurt ran too deep. It suffered too much at the hands of the German enemy.
What's going to go down for King Tiger? We're already on there. Are they going to come down knocking on the hatch?
Now, this Kampfgruppe put up a brave fight,
Morgan is also enshrined. I know,
given the sheer numbers that were sort of rolling in towards them, the British from the north, the Americans from the south, the Russians from the west, the east.
They will then park up, they'll do solitary laps, and at that point I should be able to tell you something about it. I will let them do their stuff because you won't know what I'm saying. Interesting, a range of weights here from 30 to 72 tons. That is really quite a wide range. Just passing us now is the Leopard 1. equation you've got to get right in order to allow the vehicle to do what you want it to do. The British Army's ideas with the Chieftain, it's a heavyweight slugger. Our thought was that these vehicles would sit in a hold-down position, somewhere on the North German plate, knock out the first few Warsaw Pact tanks coming towards us, and then, having done that, retreat back to the next prepared position. Sit there, hold down, do the same thing again. So we're prioritising firepower and armour over mobility. Now, the Chieftain, back in its day, was regarded as a very, very from the US Army. It's part of their forces in Germany, and that is the thing that always slightly puzzled me about this. Comes out in the mid-1960s, and it's the first. So there's a certain amount of firepower there. It's got the 105mm L7. Wonderful Brownie noise. Sits on the corridor. May notice that it was originally built as I think we may be making a bit of a statement here, because you have the T-72M, Warsaw Pact, and then the other Chieftain, and it is a whole new generation of tanks. If you look at the shape of it, the Challenger 1, it's the first British tank with composite armour. If you look at the shape of the T-72, it's rounded. That is cast steel armour. The Challenger 1 is very squared off. It's a type of armour called Chobber. And what that is, composite armour, is they're boxes of steel casing, and then things like rubber, complex polymers, even ceramic tiles. T-72, moving on. Challenger 1. The other fact about Challenger 1 is that Challenger 1 holds the record for the longest range tank kill ever. In Operation Granby, First Gulf War, Charlie 1 knocked out an Iraqi T-55 at a range of 4,700 metres. That's about 3 miles. That's an extraordinary piece of feat.
got some interesting guys from the REME there with them today, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. So today, driving that vehicle, we've got Corporal Glasgow.
So these are like the Army's Tonka toys, big meaty bits of kit for that way. So wheeled, obviously, it's got some
Not as powerful as the SVR. That crane is there solely to lift the back decks or the pad out of a Challenger. About 6.5 tons is what that can lift. Once again, it's a hugely important asset enabling us to carry on with manoeuvre warfare. That is the movement, the free movement of our forces out of this. It's there to pull tanks out of chop. That's what it does, and it is one of the best sounding vehicles I think we have.
traditionally, when you just go back in history, rivers are still being used as defensive lines. So if you've got an armoured force, you come to a river, you can't cross it, you're going to need pontoons or something. And the idea of being able to deploy a bridge of this scale in the time you're going to siege means your force can continue. And as we've been following what's going on in Ukraine, river lines are still being used for defence there, so we know these are going to still be very important assets to the army. Obviously, they are precious assets, so you guys are going to really have to look after these, aren't you?
Absolutely. So in an armoured battle group at this point, if this was pushing forward and there was a slightest chance that there'd be any form of resistance, this would be sandbagged in effect with a troop of tanks. So 4 tanks would be protecting this vehicle. At the end of the day, we have fewer of these than we do tanks. This is it's a high value target for the enemy. So you'd have 4 tanks physically protecting it at this point. Further away, you'd have tanks in Overwatch, which would be not necessarily looking at the bridge crossing. That's what the tanks there are doing. They're going to be looking into the far distance to ensure there's no threat coming in from further away. Now, as we see it going down, you can tell this is the number 10. Okay, not just because it's that size, but it's the scissor bridge action. None of the other bridges, we've got a number 11, which is a 14.5 metre span, and a number 12, which is a 12 metre span. They're just single bridges like this, they don't flip out. Hugely important, as mentioned, manoeuvre warfare. That's what the army focuses on at the minute, and that is what the British Army is and has traditionally been very good at. We're not the biggest army in the world, but we can move very effectively. As this bridge is going down, you're going to have more reserve forces in the rear ready to push forward. Generally, that's known as the bridgehead force. It will comprise of armoured infantry in Warriors 510s. So as soon as this bridge is down, the infantry are going to push over the bridge. They're going to push out about 500 metres to a K on the other side, set up that defence. Because they've got man-portable anti-tanks, we can set up our own anti-tank screen. We really own that. And as soon as they've gone out, the breakout force of tanks will then push over. And these will push another tactical bound over. We're creating that ring of steel, we're supporting the Titan, we're protecting it, because as soon as this is laid, this is going to disappear back, possibly pick up another bridge, or if this is secure, it will sit close by, ready to pick up and go forward.
So just an opportunity to mention, again, from our point of view, many people here will have read the news, what's going on in certainly places like Ukraine, etc. But this idea, now in the future, this may well be happening at night, because so much of what we're going to see in the future Still investing in armour, it's still a crucial thing. Just think of it, First or Second World War, when air power comes in.
Scout that area out in front of us. You can easily identify this as a Jackal 2, not an original Jackal, because the gunner's ring is set slightly further back. The Jackal guns, they are further forward.
Why we haven't got an enclosed cab is that sense of visibility, that sense of being able to look around everywhere. And again, the speed of this, those exercises from Germany to Poland, etc., these can win.
500-mile radius, operating independently was perfect for the desert scenario.
So again, we're looking at now one of these vehicles. We can see it. Normally you wouldn't be able to see this, of course. We're looking at Ajax, another,
Which is a massive increase in firepower over the 30-mile cannon you'd have seen on the Ravens just. What does that mean? Well, with the advanced sensors on it, we can now spot the enemy from further away. In effect, doubles our recce standoff. We are able...
Sweet.
Again, acoustic sweep. The theory being, it can pick up anything from a lot further away. You hear something going, it can tell you the vehicle, it can tell you where it's coming from, which means you as the commander have the ability to decide the best course of action. Yes, it's big. We know that. It is a lot bigger than our traditional recce vehicles. But the soldiers aren't designed to get off this. They can stay on this. They don't need to get off onto the back decks with binoculars, advanced sighting systems, better imagery, night sights, all that kind of stuff that used to be manhandled into the Scorpion, into the Scimitar rather. It's now part of this vehicle. And it sounds absolutely fantastic.
And this is part of a family, so there's other areas for other roles on the battlefield.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first ones, my regiment has been relatively lucky. We weren't the first ones, but we've got some Ajax out on the soldier campaign now. We've got the command area, the Athena. Our current commanding officer is one of the most dyed-in-the-wool tank men I've ever met. He is
So an old favourite coming on now, this is Megatron.
absolutely, yeah. This is our baby down at ATU, so-called Megatron, because of all the trials, all the transformations it's gone through. We thought Megatron was a suitable name. Dressed up this time in a Barracuda and bar armour attire, it's pretty much there. That is all ECM based. Again, at the front, if you see the two antennas, this is all designed to stop IEDs. It could block out those radio signals for signal detonated ones. For those of you that were misfortunate enough to come and listen to one of my ammo talks earlier, we know it's got the rifle gun. The rifle gun is what makes it British. We've got the rifle gun because we still like firing cash.
Levels of protection and the standard of protection on that next generation Trotter armour. This is fantastic. British invention back in the 1960s. The new smoothbore gun, interoperability in terms of ammunition, so we can we're not alone in having to make still expensive stuff ammunition, but you know the fact we can now use other countries' ammunition as well in the smoothbore. But obviously Megatron has been the tank that you guys have been playing with over the years, adding absolutely everything. Most of them in service don't look like this, do they?
Absolutely, you're correct. However, every tank in service can look like this. It's just a series of add-on things. There's little bits and pieces on the inside that are a little bit different, but this is the beauty. It's like a tank from building blocks. You can scale the survivability to Estonia and Opca Brick. We've been in the Baltics now for quite some time. That is the biggest
push forward. Call for artillery. It's going to need confirmation now.
So the commander's primary role in this is to command the driver. The person who will be sat in the gunner's seat is the fire controller, but you need two people to confirm that. So
Speed, as we can see here, speed itself, we said it earlier, it's a protection. The quicker you are, the way onto the battlefield. We've got a fantastic collection here of some very interesting vehicles. We're going to let them do a couple of laps, ladies and gentlemen, so that you can see the sort of power they've got. Just before we can't be heard, give them a round of applause. This is your army. These are the people that are going to have to go to places. Politicians, you voted to power, so own them.
Basically a peasant parade.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a great big round of applause for both David Willie for the documentation and also, of course, Lucas as well. And ladies, if you'd like to make an orderly queue by the area control point, you'll be